Coming to you live from a cabin deep in the heart of the Canadian wilderness. Turn down the lights, get yourself a drink, and let's settle in for tonight's broadcast.
Welcome back to Midnight Mysteries, the heart of Canadian Paranormal Radio. My name is Nathan.
And I'm Michael. Tonight we're talking about creatures that might be closer than you think. Things that are seen in the shadows, or caught in our headlights, or glimpsed from the edge of a lake. From towering figures in the forest to serpents beneath the waves, these are the cryptids of Canada. Have you ever seen something you couldn't explain? A shape in the trees? Something watching from the water? Or eyes that didn't belong? Drop us a line in the comments or send us a message. We'd love to hear your story.
Before we wander too far into the forest, let's take a look at what's been happening behind the curtain in recent news. Last month, the U.S. Department of Justice and FBI officially stated that Jeffrey Epstein did not possess a client list, despite years of whistleblower claims, survivor testimonies, and even law enforcement sources saying otherwise. This directly contradicts earlier comments from former Attorney General Pam Bondi, who once said that the list was, quote, sitting on her desk. That contradiction has only deepened public suspicion, especially after recently resurfaced investigation revealed major errors in the official jail footage. Not only is there a missing minute in the surveillance video, but what was released appears to be a screen recording with strange aspect ratio shifts, questionable edits, and even an unidentified third person entering the area near Epstein's cell. And now, as of this week, the Justice Department has ordered to begin turning over documents to Congress, including internal logs, interviews, and potentially revealing correspondence tied to the case. The deeper we look, the more the official story seems to unravel. Now, shifting from federal secrets to artificial intelligence gone sideways. During late July's massive 8.8 magnitude earthquake near Russia's Pacific coast, AI systems like Grok and Google's own summaries began pushing false emergency information to users, including telling users that residents of Hawaii were safe from any potential danger and could return to their homes. This was hours before the all clear had actually been issued. Though updates were eventually issued, the damage was done. In a moment where accuracy could mean survival, AI got it wrong. And finally, let's look up to our Canadian skies. Canada's Office of the Chief Science Advisor has launched Sky Canada, a federal research initiative calling for better scientific tracking of the 600 to 1,000 annual UAP, or unidentified aerial phenomena, sightings reported across the country, highlighting how little we still know. There's something about the deep woods that makes us look over our shoulders. A rustling branch, a strange call in the night. Or maybe it's the feeling that we're not alone. Tonight we're stepping into the world of cryptids, into the forests, lakes, and empty highways of Canada, where the veil between nature and nightmare thins. Where stories aren't just remembered, they're repeated. Because maybe, just maybe, the creatures we call cryptids aren't myths. They're here, just like us. So grab your flashlight, zip up your tent, and remember to keep one eye on the tree line. You never know what might be watching you.
I love the topic of cryptids. Like, I don't know. There's just something, all the times you and I, Nathan, when we've been out camping in the dark, isolated from everybody, every little sound in the forest you hear.
Not wanting to leave the tent to pee because we didn't know what was out there.
Yeah, like it's just, to me, it's just such a, I don't know, it's ingrained in me as an Albertan, I feel like, because we really value our wilderness here. And so, the thought that there's cryptids out there that we don't know or that are potentially watching us, just, I don't know. it creeps me out, but it's also so cool.
Well, tonight's script starts, as it always does, with a scream. Danielle, an avid hiker who in the fall of 2023 was camping near Ghost Lake, Alberta, says, "It wasn't a mountain lion. It wasn't a coyote. I've heard all of those. I've been around them my whole life. This was human, but wrong." She and other campers report that around 2 a.m., something screamed across the water, a deep guttural sound that echoed so hard it rattled her chest. The scream was followed by a heavy crashing of footsteps coming from the tree line. When morning came, her group of campers found branches broken nearly 8 feet high and massive footprints pressed into the damp forest floor. She reported it to the Alberta Sasquatch organization, and she's not alone. Whatever it was, it came close enough to leave marks, but not answers. Seen, but never known.
And isn't that the calling card of Sasquatch, right? It's like,
And most cryptids, right?
oh, it's like it's always seen or heard, not both, and like in such a brief glimpse of time. 2 a.m. Like how many things happen between 2 and 4 a.m.
I think it was How I Met Your Mother that says nothing good happens after 2 a.m. or 3 a.m., something like that.
Well, I mean, yeah, like the witching hour, as they call it, right?
Yeah.
Crazy. Yeah, I love the Alberta Sasquatch organization. Is a good organization, and Alberta's really kind of accepted this
Branding.
Yeah, like you go to Nordegg now, and it's like there's all this
Bigfoot.
Sasquatch stuff.
Yeah.
It's cool. I love it.
Well, and speaking of organizations, in January 2025, the site Squatch Away featured a documentary titled Bigfoot and Me, which reminds me of Marley and Me. But anyways, this documentary follows several teams into the Kananaskis backcountry. They captured audio, cast tracks, and what I found most haunting is that they presented a video diary from a solo researcher. Her GoPro footage is simple. It's her tent, her campfire, and how quiet everything is around her. But what struck me wasn't the footage. It was her video diary the next morning. Her voice is flat. It's tired. She looks into the camera and says, "I don't think the woods wants me here." Not something in the woods, not a creature, not a sound she's hearing. It's the woods themselves. And that phrase stuck with me, not because it's proof of anything, but because it's the kind of thing you say when you're losing your sense of place.
Oh, yeah. After a rough night of whatever happened, like totally. Some mornings after, camping, and I've been stressed out at night because I was hearing something in the woods, like it takes a lot out of you. But Kananaskis backcountry is epic, first of all.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So wild. Like I've never seen more bears in my life than in Kananaskis country. But if there was a place for Sasquatch in Alberta, that would be one of the places I'd be looking.
Well, and with sightings, the Alberta Sasquatch organization receives between 7 and 10 sightings from across Banff, Canmore, and Nordegg each year. But these aren't blurry photos. They're moments of fear and wonder to the witnesses. To me, it always feels like these creatures want to stay just out of sight, not to be seen, but close enough that we feel they're there. It shows itself just enough to remind you it's real. And we see references like that with other cryptids too. Here in Canada, we have a particularly famous water-based cryptid that stays just out of arm's reach, but shows up enough to spook us. We'll get back to this in a moment, but give me a minute to create some context. A water-based cryptid we've all heard of is the Loch Ness monster. A serpent-like creature that is at least 40 feet long is said to dwell in the dark waters of Scotland's Loch Ness. It's described as having a humped back, a long and narrow head with deep-set eyes, and the ability to disappear beneath the surface without a ripple. The earliest written accounts of the Loch Ness, now hear this surprised me, the earliest written accounts of the Loch Ness monster date back to the biography of Saint Columba, which was written in the 6th century.
Wow.
Written around 697 AD, Columba is described to having stopped the monster from attacking one of the followers simply by invoking the name of God. Since then, Nessie has become a cultural icon. It's been featured in movies, documentaries, tourisms, and thousands of people's stories. Whether you believe it or not, the legend has endured for over 1,500 years. I always thought the Loch Ness was something that showed up in the 80s and just kitschy t-shirts, which we all love, and fridge magnets and postcards started issuing them after that. But it's at least 1,500 years old.
That's wild. The comment there about how he stopped it by invoking the name of God. That's so interesting because, you know, even just quickly back to the Sasquatch piece, you know, sometimes it feels like Sasquatch aren't from this dimension. You know, it's like they just phase in and out of reality. You know, there's like 2 or 3 footprints and then nothing.
Just disappears.
Or they're there and then they're not. And, you know, it makes me wonder, are these truly physical beings? Or are they something from another dimension, a spiritual dimension? And that kind of plays a little bit into what you were saying there about how Columba invoked the name of God to stop this beast, right?
Yeah, and with Loch Ness, with Nessie specifically, there's some First Nations groups that believe in water spirits or water cryptids, and Nessie isn't alone. Canada has one of its own cryptids like Ness. So halfway across the world, in the deep glacial waters of British Columbia's Okanagan Lake, something strikingly similar has been reported for centuries by the Silha First Nations people. A creature described as having a humped back, a long and narrow head with deep-set eyes, and the ability to disappear beneath the surface without a ripple. Historically, they called it the Nahatik. Today, we call it the Ogopogo.
Oh, this is like a childhood, not obsession, but this was something, because we used to go to this lake all the time. Penticton, right? Just at Penticton there. And I knew this as a kid. I had heard about the Ogopogo. My dad talked about it. And I just remember like staring at the lake, being so fascinated, waiting to find something. And just this like, I don't know, there's just such
The
a
anticipation.
this intense sense of like mystery and awe. Like, it's like nostalgia for me hearing about it.
Well, one of the important factors about cryptids for me is when they're nearly identical to other cryptids in other countries. And these countries had these legends of these beings before they ever had contact with each other. Yeah. Before they were able to influence their culture's beliefs, right?
Before
and we see
social
that with
media.
We see that with dragons and with Sasquatch, like Yeti and other creatures. And we see this with the Ogopogo. It's nearly identically described as the Loch Ness monster. Yeah. But you should be warned that according to the Silha oral and written tradition, travelers across Okanagan Lake were expected to make offerings to appease Ogopogo. The offering usually consisted of sacrificed animals, tobacco, salmon, or precious items, which were all offered into the water. Chants or songs were also performed before launching boats or canoes.
So that to me would imply that Indigenous group thought this was something more than an animal. This was something. This was something that was self-aware and could be appeased with offerings.
And like spiritual too.
Spiritual,
right?
You know, I know tobacco has a lot of meaning in some Indigenous history as well. And so I'm like, they're obviously they believe this was more than just a dinosaur that somehow survived, right?
Yeah. And witness and tradition assert that when Ogopogo was angered or disrespected, the consequences were often deadly. There's encounters where canoes and boats capsize, where they're dragged under the water without any warning. Other Silha histories talk about entire travelers being swallowed whole and never seen again. Jeez. Oftentimes, there would be sudden storms or unnatural waves that erupted from what seemed like calm waters. And then there were times where people mocked the stories and suddenly got sick or experienced something tragic.
Again, something much more than just an animal or a beast. Something spiritual or interdimensional.
And this is interesting because these stories were so prevalent and they occur so much in these traditions that skeptics felt they needed to weigh in on it. And skeptics argue that it's just sturgeon or it's wave patterns. But even those who've lived their whole lives on the lake say they've seen something they can't explain. In May of 2024, Global News British Columbia aired footage submitted by a local boater on Okanagan Lake near Penticton. Everything was calm until something large breached the surface, creating a long, dark wave pattern unlike anything they've seen in their life of boating. In the video, the boat quickly turns sharply, and you can see what looks like a smooth, serpent-like back gliding through the water. It was there, and then it wasn't. Like it wanted to be seen, but not quite known or discovered. Let's listen in.
That's where I thought it was a log.
On their last sail of the season, Dale Hanchar, his wife Colleen, and their neighbor Myrna Germain Brown saw something shocking beneath Okanagan Lake's surface.
Nice easy breeze, cruising out across the lake, and we saw something in the water. And as a boater, I was just looking, is this something dangerous that needs to be marked so somebody doesn't run into it? We went by it. It looked like a log down into the water, but didn't look quite right.
That's when they snapped a photo.
It wasn't until we got home, we got looking at it and zoomed in on it that we were like...
puzzled.
The horns are if we can call them that,
so
the nodules.
Yeah.
Oh, at least 3 feet.
And then it goes out from there.
And, it would have been that big. And that's why I thought if it was Ogopogo sleeping, I don't want to be here.
Now, we've shown the photograph to our expert, and he was surprised by what he saw. However, he does have a theory of what it could be, if not the legendary lake monster Ogopogo.
I am not going to lie. As soon as I opened up, I did have a moment of hesitation, like, whoa, this is not like something I've seen before, because you immediately see the horns. In a lot of classic depictions of lake monsters, people will note horns of some type. At first glance, it does appear to be monstrous looking. You're looking at some head, but, taking into consideration being able to zoom in and the coloration and, the location in which a head would naturally be in relation to a leg or a wing, it appears to be some sort of aquatic bird, whether it be a goose or a duck or something like that.
Whether a duck, a goose, or Ogopogo itself, the photo continues to keep the legend of the mysterious lake monster alive and well. Sydney Morton, Global News, Kelowna.
So we'll share this photo on our Instagram page, but the expert's opinion is great, but unfortunately, what it says is that these witnesses are lying if the photo isn't true. So if you take out the witness's account, the photographer's account, and just have the photo, it's easier to debunk. But if you're an expert and you say, actually, they're lying and this photo is fake, it's a lot harder to move on from there. So I don't know if I'm ready to say that these witnesses are just liars and took a photo of this aquatic bird swimming in the water, or if they had an actual encounter with this being.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big leap, right? Like, how big was this bird, right?
Yeah.
But the gentleman that was being interviewed, like, just from my experience in interviewing people, he didn't sound like he was making anything up. Like, just he seemed very confident in what he was saying, which was, I found kind of interesting. But, there's a lot of these lake monsters stories in Canada. Even I'm just thinking, even Alberta, Cold Lake has one. Medicine Hat, the story of how Medicine Hat, the city in Alberta, was founded, references a river monster or a demon
and a sacrifice being made.
So it's so interesting. It's not a one-off. It's like
it's a recurring theme.
Yeah, there really is.
So 3 months later, after this encounter, a full documentary was released titled Cursed Waters, Creature of Lake Okanagan. This documentary features 3 additional video clips, 2 photographs, and a dozen of local stories. One of the witnesses is a retired conservation officer.
He would know his stuff.
But not all of Canada's cryptids dwell in the depths. Some stalk the land, some walk upright. So finally, we're talking about the creature that might give you nightmares tonight.
Uh-oh.
A towering bipedal figure that's half man and half canine with glowing eyes, sharp claws, and a howl that is described to chill the spine. No, it's not a werewolf. It's the Dogman. The first written sighting of a Dogman goes back to 1887 in Wexford County, Michigan. In her research on Michigan, attorney and crime writer Julie Albrecht Royce talks about two lumberjacks who claim they saw a beast with the body of a man and the head of a dog stalking the edge of their logging camp. But sightings have always been around the Great Lakes region. In fact, some Odawa oral traditions predating European settlement talk about upright wolf-like forest spirits that could take on physical form here in Canada.
It's interesting. Like, I know Dogman and werewolves there's, possibly some differences. But it's, this whole idea of a humanoid / dog wolf hybrid goes back so long. Like,
Yeah.
even, I think of, there was you'll remember his name, the guy that wrote Onward Christian Soldiers, the hymn.
Oh, Sabine Baring Gould?
Yeah, like he
Yeah.
wrote a whole book on lycanthropy.
Lycanthropy, yeah.
Werewolves, right? So,
Yeah.
I mean, this has been something that's been talked about for generations upon generations.
Yeah, and let's talk about that for a moment. A lot of people believe werewolves come from old European folklore, whereas it was merely popularized here in the West by Europe, just because of a lot of written literature. But they're much older than that. Egypt had Anubis, which was the jackal-headed god of mummification and the afterlife.
Right.
Ancient Greek history talks about lycanthropos, or wolf humans.
Yeah.
The word lycanthropy is actually used both in regard to cryptozoology and in present-day psychology.
What a like
Jump.
what a mix, eh? Yeah, like
What a contrast.
cryptozoology or psychology.
Clinical psychology defines it as a rare psychiatric syndrome where a person believes they are an animal, not necessarily just a werewolf. Whereas with cryptozoology, werewolves involve stories of men and women who are cursed or infected and transform into beasts under the full moon. These legends were often tales about morality, with warnings about rage, sin, and losing control. In these encounters, people transform and eventually they turn back. But the Dogman isn't someone turning into something. It's just something.
That's interesting. Part of me wonders, is it very similar but just permanent? Like, there's no,
Right. Yeah.
like maybe, or maybe potentially the roots of it come from like Dogman, but then maybe certain groups kind of twisted into werewolves to maybe push those control mechanisms you talked about, like rage and sin and those things. Like, makes me wonder, right? Like, I think there has to be some kind of connection here. They're very similar.
When I think of Wendigo, Wendigo versus Windigo, Windgeo, when Windigo, Dego, and how one is a being and one is somebody turning into it.
Right.
And we do a whole episode on Wendigo and Wendigo psychosis, which is found in modern criminal court settings and psychology with DSM. You could check out that episode, but most of the history surrounding this stuff seems to originate from First Nations groups and early settler history. With the Dogman specifically, descriptions are consistent. A 7 to 8 foot tall creature with the head of a canine, glowing eyes, clawed hands, and long limbs. It walks upright, sometimes even running that way.
It's just terrifying.
There's no transformation. There's no tragic backstory. There's just the creature. Some believe it's a relic species, something ancient and undiscovered. Others, they think it's something else entirely, not biological, but spiritual, a predator from somewhere else. For example, Cree and Dene oral histories mention powerful forest spirits, sometimes described as large, hairy figures that watch over the land. And just a quick aside, some of these creatures are described exactly like Bigfoot, and the parallels are hard to ignore here too.
Well, even I'm thinking skinwalkers as well, right? Like,
Yeah.
you know, people turning into beasts, right?
Yeah.
There's probably a thread of connection between all of these somehow.
Yeah, well, a lot of these creatures include half humans, and some are half canine-like appearances too, a blend of the both. And different early European fur traders in the 1800s kept journals detailing man-like beasts that move swiftly through dense woods, sometimes leaving behind massive footprints.
Just to pause there for a second, like, imagine being like a European settler coming across the ocean to Canada. Endless forests, endless mystery and isolation. Like, could you imagine what that would be like? And like, first of all, the sense of mystery is, you know, we don't really get that nowadays because we know so much about the world. But just imagine like being in their shoes and then seeing and hearing about things like this. Like, that just sounds so crazy to me.
Well, and part of me, I'd have to dig into this history more, but part of me wonders what great of a risk people took to share these stories. Like, if you spooked people, you were ostracized, right? You weren't able to necessarily have the same social connections. You were risking your social reputation and possible access to inventories of food and other things to keep yourself alive in the Wild West, right? And so I think it took a lot for them to come forward and share these stories because it truly freaked them out. And
no kidding.
In the Alberta archives, there's an 1884 journal entry from a trapper near Fort McMurray who described hearing a wailing cry that no man or known animal could produce. And again, you know, we have animals like bobcats and other animals that give out cries like a wailing woman or like a baby, but these were experienced trappers. These were
they know their stuff. Trappers know their stuff.
And when you hear something like that, it kind of puts a chill in your spine, a wailing cry that no man or known animal could produce.
Could you imagine though, like, as a trapper, I mean, your business is knowing the woods and knowing the sounds and knowing the tracks, and your knowledge is far beyond the average person. So imagine having that kind of knowledge and then hearing something that you have no idea what it is. Like, that's got to be a whole nother level of terrifying because like, you know what's out there and you don't know what that is.
It wouldn't encourage you to go back into the woods again, but you'd have to.
Yeah.
So fast forward to the 1980s and 90s, where Elkhorn, Wisconsin became ground zero for a string of Dogman encounters. The locals caught let's try that again, folks. The locals called it the Beast of Bray Road. These encounters included daytime sightings, scratched vehicles, and a report of a wolf-headed creature seen crouched along roadsides or dotting across cornfields.
Jeez,
These weren't just whispered tales around a campfire. They were printed in the local newspaper. People were concerned, and eventually journalist Linda Godfrey published a full investigation in her book titled The Beast of Bray Road. So what about here in Canada then? Aside from the Canadian Ottawa, Cree, Dene, and early settler history we've touched on tonight, sightings have continued into our modern times.
Yeah.
In September 2024, the podcast Dogman Encounters featured multiple Canadian eyewitnesses. One truck driver claimed to see a massive, upright, wolf-like figure on a remote Ontario highway at 3 a.m. He said, and I'm quoting here, "It had these glowing yellow eyes and claws longer than my fingers. I thought I was hallucinating." You can hear that full story on episode 521 of Dogman Encounters. But it doesn't stop there. TikTok recently saw a surge in Canadian users sharing Dogman encounters, especially in rural Ontario and the BC interior. People posted stitched clips, grainy trail cam footage, and late night dash cam videos of something crouched by the ditch, standing up, looking right at them, and then bolting into the forest. If you search hashtag Dogman Canada or hashtag Wendigo TikTok, you'll fall into a rabbit hole of headlights, howls, and dark forest roads.
Yeah, I've tripped into those rabbit holes before. Let me tell you, you can spend a lot of time. But I just wanted to make a comment here because it kind of pulls in the news story about the AI and this together. The era of video being the like ultimate evidence is I feel like it's kind of ending. Like with AI, there's just so much you can do, and so it's like we're almost going back to eyewitness testimony.
And
like multiple witnesses being like the standard, because there is a lot of stuff that I see on some of these rabbit holes that I'm like, that's AI, and some of them are really well done. It's hard to tell, but it's hard these days.
What's fascinating with that is, as technology has progressed to the point where it can be a bit indistinguishable in terms of graphics and image generation or video generation, psychology has progressed to the point where you're more and more able to tell if somebody is lying based off vital signs, heart rate, blood pressure, pupil dilation, and other social cues. So
Right.
I think you're right. I think we're going to see a bit of a fallback onto eyewitness testimony with some of those tools and seeing if people are really telling the truth or not, or if
Right.
they're lying. And then, maybe one day there'll be the flip-flop again. There'll be some sort of program that's able to tell if a video is generated off of, ChatGPT or whatever. So one thing that strikes me is, there were thousands and thousands of these hashtags, but all it takes is one. And I say this a lot, but all it takes is one. Let's say there's 100 million of these videos out there, and only one of them, it's a real video of the Dogman.
Yeah.
Right? That confirms it's true. It means it's real. So, and same with testimony. Something we've talked about before is, let's say any of this supernatural or paranormal stuff across history and time, there must be billions of angelic encounters or alien encounters or whatever you could name, billions and billions throughout history. All it takes is one true sighting of a ghost to change everything, right? There's a dimension beyond our own. There's a heaven or hell. It's just like, is it, more statistically possible that everyone has seen something fake and is lying, or is it statistically possible that just one could be real, right? So, and these encounters happen from, the most of the educated people to the least of the educated people. Not that means the encounters are any more unique or not, but people can take a more of a critical eye when they know how to evaluate themselves.
Yeah.
So they saw it, they just didn't know what they saw. One of our listeners recently wrote in from Parry Sound, Ontario. She asked to be called Tasha. She says, I was driving home on a dark farm road just before Canada Day. It was late and I had to drive slowly. As I came around a bend, my headlights caught something crouched low in the ditch. At first, I thought it was a deer, but then it stood up. It was tall, 7 feet at least. Thin arms, long claws, red eyes. It turns its head with this jerky motion, and then it bolted into the trees. I still won't take that road alone.
The piece that gets me there is like the turning of the head with a jerky motion.
Yeah.
Like in my mind, that's so terrifying.
I would have peed myself then and there. Actually, I probably just would have expired then and there.
Yeah.
And she's not the only one. We hear stories like that all the time from people who never believed until they saw something for themselves. Maybe it was an animal. Maybe it was her imagination. But if you ask me, the Dogman is one of the few creatures that seems more out of our nightmares than our forests. What gives a cryptid the most weight for me is when unconnected cultures, like we talked about, from across time and geographic locations have the same described being, down to behaviors, feeling, and lore. And just like we talked about with Nessie and the Ogopogo, the Dogman is described virtually identically across Greek, Roman, German, Hindu, Slavic, African, Native American folklore, and more. So next time you're on a dark road or standing at the edge of a quiet lake, remember to keep one eye on the tree line.
Yeah, there's so many stories, and like even a gentleman I know, he just randomly told me one day that he saw a skinwalker, and it was funny because he's telling it to me in a group of people, and some of the comments were like, "Oh yeah, sure, okay," but you know me, stay weird and all, midnight mysteries. I was like, "Oh, please tell me about it," right? Might have to see if I can get him to come on one of our episodes and tell his story.
Let's do an interview.
There's so many stories out there, and I know so many of you listening have stories, so please share them with us. We'd love to hear it and talk about it in our episodes.
Yeah. We live in a world that's still wild and wonderfully unexplained. Maybe it's meant to stay that way, to keep us curious and humble, and maybe a little uneasy when we hear a twig snap at night. If you've had your own cryptid encounter, whether in the woods, on the water, or anywhere in between, like Mike said, we want to hear from you. Send us your story and you might hear it on a future episode. Remember, stay weird, and we'll see you next time on Midnight Mysteries. Have a good night.